According to NAR, National Association of Realtors, the first-time homebuyer is now 40. Now, we can argue about the data, but I don't want to do that. I want to talk about and assume for today that that data is correct, that the first-time homebuyer median age is 40. What does it mean? What do we do? Are there any answers? We're going to have this conversation with Matt, the mortgage guy. What's going on, buddy? I heard you just had this conversation with your kids, so let's talk about it.
Yeah, it's a conversation that I have really, really often. I don't always have it at home. You know, they talk about bringing your work home. But last night, we're watching Wheel of Fortune, as the Gouget family does. My wife's a pro. I'm probably, a distant second. The boys are really good at it too. But nonetheless, I think the conversation started because I said, hey, I'm going to go talk to a group of kids tomorrow. What can I do to make it interesting? What would you guys like to hear? If some guy came in with a shirt and tie and talked to you about, his career path and whatnot. And so we got on the subject. They know that I lend money to people to help them buy houses since they were, very young. They've understood that concept. And so I just threw out the stat. I said, you guys know that, like, according to this study, like the median first-time home buyer is 40 years old now. My wife was like, holy cow, thinking back, we were proud of ourselves that we bought our first house at 26. Of course, there's going to be people that like, well, in your day, my grandparents could buy it for 2 lemons and, a bag of beans.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good conversation to have, because it's on the minds of a lot of young people. And then sure. I think for me and maybe, my age demographic, we're thinking about our kids, my kids, my nieces and nephews, this generation, like, what's the job market going to be like? How hard is it going to be to buy a house? And as somebody who's in the industry, I think those of us who are really close to it and are having the hundreds of conversations a month, should be part of the conversation. I don't want to spoil the punchline, Mike, but I don't think there's a magic pill that anybody could take that fixes this overnight. But what do you see in your seat?
Well, it's an interesting, because again, I have a daughter. She's 34, right? So I mean, this is important to us. But where I really come down on this is I've done a bunch of research. So I went back to 1950, and I actually did some hard research, because again, sometimes you get stats and data and it's like, there's another story here. So let me tell you the story of 1950 starter home and ask you if anybody would buy this today. And I think this is part of the problem. 1950 starter home. You can go Google this yourself. I didn't do anything crazy. 1950, it was 950 square feet, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, no garage. The starter homes today are 4 bedrooms plus, a couple of 2.5 baths, couple of garage, couple car garage. It's just we have lost sight on a starter home being a starter home, right? People think that they're going to get their forever home when they're, just starting out. And that's just not how it's never worked that way. Now, as I've said for years, the problem is we don't build these starter homes anymore. And, that is now, when you don't build 900 square feet, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, or 3 bedroom, 1 bath for 5 decades, eventually that's going to become a problem because there's none of that inventory left. It's all been upgraded or burned down or whatever. And now we're left with, like the average square foot of a home today is like 2,200 square feet. It's double the size, right? And then the other thing that I think about is, again, I've been studying housing in detail since 1970. And I will tell you, and I would die on this hill, that housing is affordable. It's not affordable where you want to live, right? If you want to live in San Francisco because you're an AI engineer, it's not affordable. If you want to live in Manhattan because you're a Wall Street bro, it's not affordable. But it is affordable in most of the country. And the conversation I had before this interview was about Omaha, Nebraska. Omaha, Nebraska, never been there, don't know anything about it other than Berkshire Hathaway's there. It's nearly 1 million people. You can get a brand new home for 300 grand, right? So again, I think we have a lot of expectation problems. We have a lot of comfort problems. You know, and oh, by the way, you know, housing's not affordable. But again, it's not affordable where you want to live. And that's the juxtaposition we have to really have an honest discussion about.
Yeah. And that's like the word that I just kept thinking the whole time you were talking was expectations, right? I've got 2 kids. I've had a successful career. I could have bought more home. I decided, because it was, you know, financially smart, to buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. And the neighborhood I live in is a nice neighborhood. It's a family neighborhood. It's the neighborhood that my truck driver dad and my mom, who cleaned houses or collected lunch tickets at the elementary school, you know, neighborhood they decided to buy in 1981, right? And so I didn't, you know, and, you know, in my position, it was not letting lifestyle inflation take over. But even before that, when you're 25, 30, 35 and you're a first-time home buyer, to your point, the forever home's not available. That's super unaffordable and out of reach. A lot of stuff might be, but the starter home, and there's still some, right? It's funny to like hear the history of like this hospital was built and then they built a bunch of 2-1s around it for the nurses that were working at the hospital. You know, those are still available, but yeah, I think that's part of the disconnect. And I'm not, you know, copping out and saying there isn't anything that can be done, because we can build more. Things can happen that over time home prices will get more affordable. But the biggest fix, which the person has control over, right? As a first-time home buyer, you have no control over government regulation. You have no control over interest rate. You have no control over that. You do have control over, you know what? We've got 1 child. We can probably manage in 1,100 square feet. We could put, you know, that kid in one room. We could live in one, and we could probably live in a 2-1 that's 900 square feet, like the 1950s house that you discussed. It's just a matter of like, that's where you have to start, right? Like, you don't go do a 2.5-hour workout your first day in the gym. You got to work up to it. And so, yeah, I think people's expectations, and then, you know, keeping up with the Joneses is a whole nother talk track. But that's the immediate fix, is people resetting expectations. Then over time, I know you've talked about, you know, how housing is going to, you know, slowly repair itself, most likely.
Yeah, again, affordability will be fixed. I told you 3 years ago it'll take 8 years. Congrats, we're almost halfway through to that, but you know, no, it's not fast enough for the Crash Bros of the world. But when I really think about kids, right, and I get the opportunity to talk to high school seniors a bunch. I wish I did it more, but you know, I get the chance, and I really want them to understand a couple of things. First, I always ask them, "Can you live on $2,000 a month?" And again, these are seniors; they have no idea what stuff costs. But everybody raises their hand, and I tell them, if that's true, and you can do it for a decade, you'll never have to work a day past 30. And that's true. That's just how math works, right? If over the next 10 to 12 years, you buy assets and those assets produce $2,000 a month and you can live on that at 30, you're golden. It's just a mindset shift. Second, you've got to believe it's possible. And that's what I think social media is killing. I think social media and the doom loop and the negativity is killing people's hope. People are consuming poison and they're believing the poison is good for them. And it's just not. It's keeping you broke. And then 2 more things. Finally, the next one is getting rich or getting wealthy has never changed. You have to own assets for a long term. You can't rent and get wealthy, generally speaking. You have to own assets. And then lastly, the big bugaboo is inflation is a feature, not a bug. All of those things are wildly true. And it's until you wake your ass up and you take extreme ownership. And I think that's what's missing today. Extreme ownership. You've got to own it. You've got to realize that none of your friends, none of your family, the government, the neighbor, nobody's coming to save you. It's your life. And the sooner you take ownership of it, the better your chances.
Yeah. And that's the issue. Unfortunately, I, have all the conversations, some good, some bad, quite honestly, some ugly. And the ugliest ones, in my opinion, are like people that call me and they want something or they feel entitled to something just because, right? Like, that's not fair. Why is it that way? I don't make the rules, but those are the rules, right? And like, it blows my mind. I had a conversation yesterday, and I don't know if the person watches one rental at a time. I think they found me through other means, but was upset, that big builders can buy tranches of mortgages and offer a 3.5% 30-year fixed, but the average person can't get that. I was kind of explaining. I was explaining how that works, and it was like, well, if they can do that and they can do it to help sell their, homes that they want to sell at the price they want to sell, well, gosh darn it, me as a buyer, I should be able to do that, regardless of, if it puts mortgage companies out of business or there's no secondary market for them to sell. Like, I want the 3.5, I shall have the 3.5. Like, that's just not how life works. If you're 9, you might have that mentality. When you're 29, you probably got to snap out of it. And to your point, like, yeah, there's expectations, there's entitlement. Sometimes the things that are most worthwhile in life, like owning a home, are going to be hard. They're going to take some work. They're going to take some sacrifice. You're not going to buy a brand new car the first job you get. You're going to save money for a down payment, but that's probably what half of the battle is with this generation. Is, yes, it's slightly less affordable by certain metrics versus other time periods, but still affordable to the people that make it a priority and sacrifice other stuff.
Amen. If somebody wanted to reach out to you and have a conversation, see what's what, how do they do that?
They can just go to mtmg.com. Go there. You can book a call. If you want to whine to me about how it's not fair, please don't. But if you want to talk about getting pre-approved, if you want to talk about how anybody, even a public school dummy like me, can slowly accumulate real estate and build wealth, that's a conversation I love having. And trust me when I tell you, I've learned a few things because I've done a few deals. Everybody starts the conversation, Mike. My scenario is a little different. Mine's a little difficult. And I'm like, all right, it's probably going to be a lot easier than half the shit I've already dealt with today. So mtmg.com, reach out. I'd love to have a conversation. No matter where you're buying, no matter when you're buying, just start with a conversation so you can get yourself headed in the right direction.
Awesome. Appreciate you. Take care.
Yep.